vous êtes dans le mauvais channel, Sophie, non? Là, je suis dans le English et je vous entends.
Alors,
Oui, oui, j'entends. J'entends en français.
pour commencer alors.
En français.
Non.
Ok, ça va, merci.
Alors, je crois que je peux commencer. Bonjour, chers amis. Tout le monde m'écoute? Oui.
Oui.
Sí, yes.
Bonjour, chers amis. C'est avec grand plaisir que je vous retrouve aujourd'hui pour présider cette réunion des membres du groupe Praia sur les statistiques de gouvernance. Tout d'abord, je tiens à saluer toutes les personnes présentes et à vous remercier pour votre amitié et votre partenariat. Je tiens également à remercier nos partenaires, en particulier les membres de notre steering committee, qui sont essentiels au groupe du Praia pour mener à bien son travail et qui ont apporté leur précieuse contribution à la réalisation de cet événement. Je remercie également toutes les personnes impliquées qui ont accepté de participer à cette réunion et de partager leur expérience et leurs connaissances, notamment les instituts nationaux de statistiques et organisations régionales des 4 coins du monde. Cette réunion des membres se veut être un espace de discussion et d'échange concernant le chemin parcouru depuis le début du second mandat du groupe, ainsi que comme espace de réflexion concernant l'avenir des statistiques de gouvernance et à part le fait même l'avenir du groupe de Praia. En tant qu'institution, ont assumé les présidences et le secrétariat du groupe de Praia depuis sa création en 2015. L'Institut national de statistiques du Cap-Vert est très fier du chemin parcouru par le groupe jusqu'à présent. Notre plus grande réussite à ce jour, la publication d'un handbook sur les statistiques de gouvernance en 2020, a jeté les bases d'une avance très importante pour les statistiques de gouvernance réalisé cette année. L'inclusion de nouveaux domaines statistiques sur la gouvernance dans la version révisée de la classification internationale des activités statistiques adoptée en mars dernier par la Commission des statistiques des Nations Unies. De toute évidence, cette réalisation est le résultat du travail conjoint de plusieurs institutions et groupes de travail qui ont consacré beaucoup de temps et d'efforts afin que nous puissions aujourd'hui dire que les statistiques de gouvernance font partie de la statistique officielle. Cependant, il ne faut pas perdre de vue que nous sommes encore au début d'un long processus. La consolidation de ces nouveaux domaines nécessitera des méthodologies harmonisées pour chaque dimension de la gouvernance, reconnues et officiellement dotées par la communauté internationale. En ce sens, le groupe de Praia a mis sur pied, en novembre 2021, 2 équipes de travail, task teams, ayant pour mandat de contribuer au développement de méthodologies harmonisées pour produire des statistiques sur 2 dimensions de la gouvernance, particulièrement dépourvues des méthodologies standardisées, c'est-à-dire la non-discrimination et l'égalité et la participation dans les affaires politiques et publiques. Ces 2 task teams sont réalisés en excellent travail au cours des dernières 12 années, lesquelles vous sera présenté dans quelques instants. Permettez-moi de souligner l'importance du travail et de dire que notre priorité est d'assurer la continuité jusqu'à la fin de notre 2e mandat qui s'achève en 2025. Bien entendu, il sera tout aussi important pour nous aujourd'hui d'attendre vos suggestions concernant à la voie de suivre et les priorités de travail du groupe Praia jusqu'à 2025. Nous avons également intention, au cours de 2 prochaines années, d'attendre notre action aux 2 autres piliers de notre plan de travail, le renforcement des capacités et les plaidoyers. Et à cette fin, nous comptons sur votre soutien et votre participation. Au niveau du secrétariat, l'Institut national des statistiques du Cap-Vert, malgré ses ressources limitées, a réussi à renforcer l'équipe du secrétariat, ce qui lui a permis d'améliorer son fonctionnement. Ceci dit, nous voudrions faire appel à tous ceux et celles qui sont en mesure de nous soutenir dans la mobilisation des ressources pour le groupe du Praia, car nous avons besoin d'appui à court terme, afin de mener à bien ce travail important au service des statistiques de gouvernance. J'en profite également pour vous informer que nous avons organisé un appel à candidature pour pouvoir 4 postes vacants au sein de notre steering committee. Nous remercions les entités qui se sont portées candidats. Nous présenterons ces candidatures au steering committee lors de sa prochaine réunion au début du mois de novembre. Chers collègues, c'est un réel honneur pour moi et pour nous au secrétariat du groupe Praia d'échanger avec tous, espère en matière de statistiques de gouvernance et sur l'organisation fort diversifiée, mais partageant une préoccupation commune, faire sa part pour consolider ces nouveaux domaines de la statistique. Mon choix est comme plus d'un événement réussi dans son contenu et ces délibérations, cette réunion nous permettent également de renforcer la coopération entre nos institutions, de même que les liens d'amitié qui nous unissent. Je vous remercie. Alors, je passe maintenant la parole à Monsieur Oscar James, qui sera le modérateur de la première session, une table ronde sur l'avenir des statistiques de gouvernance. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks and welcome to the first roundtable. I will share my screen. Okay, I hope you can look at the presentation. Can you please confirm if you are looking at the presentation?
Oscar. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oui.
Okay. Please just give me a moment because I cannot see at the presentation. You can see my screen, but I cannot. Just a moment, please.
Should we display the slides for you, Oscar?
Yes, please, Marie.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Can you project the slides, please, May? Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, the title of this roundtable is Leveraging the Classification for Statistical Activities for Governance Statistics. Where do we go from here? We have 3 discussants. Next slide, please. We have Mr. Adrián Franco from INEGI Mexico. We have also Mr. John Aguiao from Ghana Statistical Services. And there was a change. Instead of Dr. Nabil Benshams, we will have Dr. Salah Al-Musami from the Statistical Center for the Cooperation Council for the Arab Countries of the Gulf. We thank you all 3 discussants, high-level discussants, for the data availability to participate in this roundtable. Thank you very much. Before going to the discussion, I will provide, next slide, please, a brief overview regarding the classification of statistical activities. And I also should mention that there is a document called Governance, now a domain in the classification of statistical activities. What is next for governance statistics? This document, this brief, is coming up. It will reach your mailbox in the coming days. And now I also must acknowledge that most of the information that I have in the next slides come actually from that brief. In March 2023, the UN Statistical Commission endorsed the classification of statistical activities. And this is very important because now the governance statistics are no longer a field of an experimental field. Now has been placed at the same level as economic statistics or demographic and social statistics. The statistical areas in this new domain, follow the structure outlined in the Handbook of Governance Statistics that was developed by the Praia Group and endorsed by the UN Statistical Commission in March 2020. The endorsed classification of statistical activities also recognizes human rights as a new cross-cutting domain of official statistics relevant to governance as well as other domains. Next slide, please. Thank you. The classification was established in 2005 by the Bureau of the Conference of European Statisticians, the CES, as a regional classification. Over time, the use of this classification widened and it became a global reference and used by both national and international agencies, as well as countries. In 2020, the CES Bureau established a task team to update the classification and include new emerging areas of statistical work. This task team was formed by Canada, Ireland, Mexico as chair, New Zealand, Eurostat, the UN Economic Commission for Europe, and the UN Statistical Division. It was agreed in this task team that there should be an alignment with existing standards, frameworks, and models, and also to convert this classification into an international agreed global classification. Next, please. In June 2022, there was a large consultation in the spring with all countries and international organizations. In June 2022, there was a draft and explanatory notes that were submitted to the Conference of European Statisticians. In October that year, 2022, this draft was submitted to the UN Committee on International Statistical Classifications. As a result of that review, it was recommended for endorsement by the UN Statistical Commission. Therefore, it was submitted and endorsed in March 2023 by the United Nations Statistical Commission in its 54th session. The custodianship of this classification has been set to be transferred from the CES Bureau and UNESE to the United Nations Statistical Division as the Secretariat of the UN Statistical Commission. Next, please. On the screen, you can see the structure of the classification of statistical activities. It's a hierarchical classification with 3 levels. The first level contains the statistical domains. The second level, the statistical activities within those domains. And there is a third level for further breakdown. What we are watching now on the screen is the first level, is the statistical domains. From 1 to 5, we have the subject matter domains. Governance statistics is now as the fourth one, is number 4. And together with environment statistics, these two are the new domains in the statistical classification. The activities for governance statistics are aligned with the Handbook on Governance Statistics. Now, regarding the use of the potential use of this statistical classification in general, based on the process related to a statistical activity, the classification can be used to classify statistical events, capacity building activities, training courses, working groups, publications, or statistical standards. Based on the output of a statistical activity, the classification can be used to classify data and metadata, particularly for domains 1 to 5, which are related to subject matter activities. Next, please. Now we have on the screen the structure of the domain 4, governance statistics. 401, non-discrimination and equality. 402, participation. 403, openness. Then access to and quality of justice, responsiveness, absence of corruption, trust, and safety and security. This structure follows the Handbook on Governance Statistics again, and the classification in some sense indicates that now these domains should be measured. However, there is a need for international agreed standards for each of these governance subdomains. It is critical to have international recognized standards and instruments that countries can use to measure these governance statistics subdomains. Next, please. Now, with that overview from the classification that I hope has been useful to set the floor for the discussion of this roundtable, we go back again to the title. This is the title, Leveraging the Classification of Statistical Activities. Where do we go from here with governance statistics? Next, please. As mentioned before, we have 3 discussants, and each of them will have around 6 to 7 minutes. And after that, we will have around 15 minutes for questions and answers. I will provide questions for our discussants in order to facilitate the discussions. So we will start with Mr. Adrián Franco, Vice President of INEGI Mexico. And Mr. Franco, thank you very much for being here with us in this roundtable. Mexico NSO has more than a decade producing governance, public safety, and justice statistics. Given your experience with this pillar in Mexico, and also at the international level working in methodology and global standards for governance, crime, and criminal justice, in your view, what could be the potential use at the global level for the classification of statistical activities for NSOs, and the possible following steps for countries to kickstart or consolidate statistical production on governance? Please, Mr. Franco, you have the floor.
Thank you, Oscar. I hope you can see me and you can hear me. Thank you very much for your questions and presentation, of course. But first of all, let me say good morning, good afternoon to everyone, and a lot of friends and colleagues. Nice to see you virtually again, and thanks to the chair of Praia Group for the invitation to participate in this place. Thank you, Joao. Best regards. The question, Oscar, is very wide, and it implies several answers. Let me put in this context. Well, first of all, national statistical offices are living and dynamic organizations that usually respond or react to different phenomena in societies. In the last years, maybe 10 or 15 years, the life of national statistical offices has been changing a lot, from very traditional topics to the new topics. And one very important set of topics has been these topics under governance statistics. At the very beginning, national statistical offices, and you can remember in the UN Statistical Commission, we open these kind of new issues with crime statistics. When we at INEGI, the National Statistical Office in Mexico, and UNODC took the topic to the Statistical Commission, everybody at there was surprised. They say, why we have to get involved in these kind of topics? Then we took the topic of justice, and then the topic of corruption, and then the drugs consumption, and then governance. So it has been a global evolution, very, very important for the national statistical offices. So, but domestically, internally in the countries, statistical offices have to respond to several challenges that usually governments put to the statistical offices. Governments usually, or civil society, ask to national statistical offices to solve some gaps of data. And those gaps of data in the last years has been more focused on governance statistics. So this is very important to see this evolution, and to see that governance statistics are now very important for national statistical offices and the national statistical systems. As you said, Oscar, Mexico, the National Statistical Offices, since 2009, it means 14 years ago, we established our national information system on governance, crime, and justice statistics. Actually, we put in the national constitution and in the law, there is a specific law for our national statistical system in this issue. And for us now, it's a very regular process of production on these data. So since 2009, we start working on surveys, national census of government, and administrative records regarding these topics: governance, crime, and justice. And that's why in every commission, task force, expert group, in every forum, we always push and propose to work on governance statistics. And we took advantage of this position as a chair in the task team for updating the classification of statistical activities during 2020 to 2022 in order to push to include this new domain on governance statistics in the classification for statistical activities, and this is so very, very, very important because for us as a statisticians, official statisticians, as you said, this is a new way in order to analyze our work, but also to make new institutional arrangements inside countries, and also to find new topics in the fields of statistics. Let me express some ideas about what those the classification of statistical activities 2.0 or the revised classification means for national statistical offices. Well, even when this classification is very, very important, and I stress very, very important, it's absolutely relevant. Classification is not a magic tool. It is this classification will not solve our problems within national statistical system, and it will not provide, for example, resources, budgets, people, technical capacity. So what is exactly the classification? It's very important that it push our work towards a new set of topics under this general concept of governance statistics. If we properly implement this classification in our national statistical offices or in our national statistical systems, of course, we will have several advantages of this classification. As I said, this is an analytical tool, but also we can change or reinforce our organizational structures. For example, in the case of Mexico, we have a huge team, about 400 people working just in governance, crime, and justice statistics, specifically for these topics, for such topics. And of course, we can also to arrange our production processes in our national statistical offices in order to cover some or all, we hope all the topics under governance statistics. But this is very important. First, it's an analytical tool. Of course, if we have this tool, the classification, of course, it contributes to empower national statistical offices when we talk about how institutionalize these topics in the work of statistical offices. Why? Because, for example, when we deal with other institutions inside the countries, they sometimes ask why you are doing data on corruption, why you are doing data on crime, why you are doing data on openness or in inclusiveness or in participation or in human rights. Well, I have to do that because I am following the international standard, and my international standard for statistical offices is this classification, as so many other classification for statistical for crimes for statistical purposes, for example, or classification of femicide, or for use of drugs or corruption, or so many other topics. So, but this is very important, not just as an analytical tool, but also institutionalize the several process of doing statistical statistics in this. But it also it is important for two other things. The classification also puts the statistical offices in a field where we have to find the way to much better coordination with national statistical system. Why? Because of course, if we follow the international standard, we have to find the way in order to coordinate much better with other institutions. And globally, of course, it is a call for better coordination between different UN agencies and other agencies. Why? Because classification or this new domain, it doesn't represent that there is only one owner of these topics. There are several owners and several mandates that are covered in all the subdimensions and the dimensions of this governance statistics. So it's very important to understand that the classification emphasizes the independence of the topics, but also it demands for much better coordination. And I will finish with this, about the following steps for the countries in order to kickstart or consolidate statistical production on governance. I will say very few things. It is very complicated to imagine the millions of possibilities inside 195 countries. So it's very complicated, but the very, very basic is that national statistical offices have to understand what we talk when we talk about governance statistics. Governance is a very abstract idea. So the way in which we can concrete the idea on governance is, and we go to the dimensions: crime statistics, justice statistics, corruption statistics, openness, and so many other fields. So we have to understand protocols, methodologies, agencies with mandates, specific mandates, other experiences from other NSOs, concepts, statistical references, and many others. So we have first to understand what we are talking about when we talk about dimensions of governance. Second, take action. Little by little, I suggest to NSOs to choose one dimension that match with a relevant, very relevant topic inside the country, a national level, and to find an organization to work with, a responsible institution, crime, justice, corruption, participation, and many other, and to start working together according to the methodologies of this dimension in order to find the way in order to produce. Third, to create or to fortify inside the National Statistical Office the team, a specialized team in this topic, because if we do very well, we expect to do very well, they are going to demand once and again and again and again. So we have to be prepared to repeat the process. And in a very repetitive way, we have to manage a statistical process in order to attend. Second one, to repeat the story, but the story with another topic. So if we success with the first topic, we can success with the second one. So again, choose one very important or relevant topic to the country, and to find the institution to work with are responsible for tackling corruption, to reduce crime, to analyze security, justice, or to improve trust in institutions, or to improve openness or quality of public services. So repeat the process. So this is very, very basic, because we don't expect that we can, or all the national statistical offices can cover all the subdimensions under governance, but little by little we can start working on this. Thank you very much, Oscar. I hope to cover to answer your question. It's really complicated and very fascinating. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you, Adrian, for that insight. Now we go with Mr. John Aguiao, head of the Price Statistics Unit and coordinator of the Ghana Maiden Corruption Survey. Please, Mr. Aguiao, now thank you for participating in this roundtable. Now, we know that Ghana Statistical Services has several years producing governance statistics. Please provide some details about the governance subdomains in which your NSO has regular programs, and if in your opinion, the classification of statistical activities, the revised classification, can be used in conversations with the government to upgrade or consolidate the work already done. Please, Mr. John Aguiao, you have the floor.
Thank you, Oscar, and good afternoon and good morning to everybody. Let me first apologize. Our network is quite unstable. So I'm pretty sure, even as I do my presentation, it will be going on and off. Please do forgive me.
Parece que sí.
Okay, so as you rightly said, the Ghana Statistical Service has been producing data on crime, safety, corruption, citizen participation in democratic processes, and even sexual violence. I must indicate that we started going to this field somewhere in 2014, based on the popular demand from the state agencies and the government. And the challenge that we've had over the years is the fact that the production of these governance statistics is not nationally driven. Mostly it comes on demand from donor partners. And therefore, the production of it cannot be said to be regular. Indeed, this reclassification to some of us is a welcoming news. One, because it's going to give us that benchmark, that international comparability. Again, it's going to help us build capacity on the methodologies to use in providing the data on the various domains. And I think that because we will have that international support, when we produce that data using the reclassification, we're going to get the buy-in of all our stakeholders, including the government. It is worthy to mention that when we recently published the corruption survey, there were a lot of fights. Some will not understand why probably their institutions were deemed to be corrupt based on the method that we used. But we think that when we have an internationally standardized methodology, ask this Praia Group 6 to do, it will then give us the leverage, the strength, and the power to be able to defend whatever that we produce. And so I think that the time is now. Maybe what we need to do, and very quickly, within the last 2 years of your term, is to help build the capacity of we the less endowed NSOs, so that we can come to terms with what the methodologies are, how we can communicate around the data that we produce, how we can disseminate it to make sure we get the buy-in of all agencies. So I think because of my network not being stable, I wouldn't talk too much. Probably the interpreters will not get me, but as we come to the Q&A, if the network is stable, any other question that comes as a follow-up, I will be available to provide further detail. But I think it's a welcoming news. It's a good exercise that's been done, and it will help us in the less privileged world to be able to produce the needed data. We all know that of late, the African continent, especially the West African bloc, is being bereft with a lot of instability. But if we have data on governance, they'll be able to know what the citizens feel about the rulers. And therefore, there'll be timely data to avert some of this instability that we are seeing in some countries in the West African subregion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for your message. Thank you very much. And now we will have Dr. Salah Al-Musami. He is Director of Research and Development Indicators from the Statistical Center for the Cooperation Council for the Arab countries of the Gulf. Dr. Al-Musami, taking into consideration the strategic position your organization has in that area. In your view, what is the potential use of the classification of statistical activities, and particularly, what do you think are the possibilities for governance statistics in the Arab countries of the Gulf? Thank you, Dr. Al-Musami. Please, you have the floor.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and good evening for some of us. Actually, thank you for the question first, and thank you for having me in this important meeting. Actually, what I want to say that the classification of or including the governors into CSA2, I feel that it can serve as a robust framework to enable NSOs in our region, in GCC region, in collaboration with inline national agencies, no doubt of that. So I agree also with the previous two speakers when they mention about we need to start gradually. I mean, to see what sub-activities under governance that we can work on it. From our view, we see that, for example, safety and security statistics are essential for the well-being of the residents in our region. I think this is an important issue for us. Also, providing an easy access to a toolbox of methodologies on the various dimensions, also including guidance on the use of administrative data to compile governance statistics. Now, you know, NSOs are reluctant to go for surveys, field surveys. So, and we have like enough evidence that that the admin records can provide a set of data. So I think collaboration with law enforcement agencies, for example, to enhance the production of such and dissemination of these statistics might be one of the options in our region. Also, for us at GCC, welcome that the guidelines will help us to adapt and customize the methodologies to the specific context of different regions and localities. So promote and adapt using use of administrative data will compile governance statistics. Actually, in this also, I think, as mentioned by maybe the first speaker, Franco, maybe, we need to work also with the specialized UN agencies. For example, again, when we talk about the crime and drugs, all these, so I think we need to work very jointly, very closely with UNODC, or the same thing for other agencies. I think we need to invest a lot in capacity building, training programs for statisticians and government officials, focusing on designing, using advanced data analysis tools is very important. Understanding and the discrepancies of governance indicators between different collection methods. We need also to invest in developing data collection tools. No doubt that we have like a standard question bank that can be utilized, and it should be from our region, and we raised this point many times. We need to respect country cultural norms and does not affect or we can say affect the collection of such statistics because of the cultures and other issues. Last but not least, establish a clear definition and measurements criteria for governance indicators to ensure consistency and comparability of data across different regions and time periods. I think also governance dynamic evolve over time. So it is essential for us to revisit the definitions and measurements criteria periodically from time to time and establish a mechanism for regular review for such, standards. That's all from my side, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Musami. Thanks for your reflection regarding the countries of the Gulf and the potential of the classification of statistical activities. Now, a brief announcement. We have been experiencing some instability with the connection, so we ask you kindly to turn off the video so we can have possibly a more stable connection. Please, we suggest to all of you that. Now we will have a few minutes for questions and answers, and so please put your questions in the chat. While you go to the chat and put your questions, I will try to give an overview of this discussion. We have been hearing our discussions from Mexico, Ghana, and the countries of the Gulf about the possibilities of the to enhance or leverage the governance statistics using the classification of statistical activities that now contains governance as a statistical domain. It is very important from what we have been hearing, the messages contain the importance of having or to be able to use standards, international standards. And as I mentioned during my presentation, there is a need. It is critical to have a standard, agreed international standards, so that countries can use them. There are, for some areas like corruption that was mentioned by Mr. Franco, also for crime statistics with the International Crime Classification for statistical purposes, and others. So that type of standards is what countries need in order to be able to use them, to have guidance, to have instruments, to have international agreed standards is critical now. The Praia Group will have to think about this need in order to advance, as in the next roundtable we'll hear from two of the subdimensions. I don't see any question. Does anyone would like to ask a question to our speakers, our discussants? If not, well, I will provide a question for our discussants regarding the view of you, our discussants, Mr. Franco, Mr. Aguiao, Dr. Al-Musami. In your view, what are the possibilities for international comparability on the different subdomains of governance statistics, given the current situation? And now that we have the classification of statistical activities that has been endorsed by the Statistical Commission, the revised classification. Mr. Franco, would you like to start with some reflection regarding this?
Yes, yes, Oscar, thank you very much. This is a very important question for the steps forward. Of course, we have 2, 4, 5, 8 dimensions under the governance on the new domain of classification, and comparability is very important for statisticians. It's absolutely very important, and the rule here, I guess, is the more standards, international standards for methodology we have in every domain, on every of this dimension, more comparable could be the statistics. What I mean is an example. We have been working for years with OECD about trust in institutions for measuring or to delivering statistics related to trust in institutions, or with UNODC regarding crimes statistics. Actually, we have not just the methodology for victimization service, but also we have the international classification for crime for statistical purposes. So countries under this governance domain in every of these dimensions, we can do statistics, and of course we can compare each other even inside country if we have to compare with different regions and sub-regions, but also internationally. And I would like to stress one thing that Dr. Al-Mushami said. It is very important to have the international standard, but it's also very important to think about what is the reality and the context of every country. So even when we have international standard, when we implement, we have to consider all the differences between regions and the country. Thank you very much, Oscar.
Thank you, Adrian. John, can you please give us your insights on this?
Yes, I think, as you rightly said about international comparability, once we have a standardized classification and we provide the methodologies, same definition, and as we have, like for price statistics, we have the Quaker classification, and then countries adopt the classifications as agreed upon and the definitions, then it makes international comparability easy. Even though, yes, we may be taking some country-specific situations into consideration, I strongly believe that once we have these international agreed definitions, methodologies, and then countries adopt them, it makes comparability easy. And therefore, countries even be able to gauge themselves and see whether they're doing well or they're doing worse as compared to the other countries. So I think comparability, yes. Based on this, we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Dr. Al-Mushami, please.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues that comparability is very important and crucial for us as a statisticians, no doubt, truly. And the first step is to have a standard to compare apple with apple. That's why classifications are there. That's why, for example, governance statistics included in this classification. So yes, standardization is very important. Comparability is there, and it is required to see where are you from others and all these issues. But also internally within local or regional context, I think we need to allow for such classifications to be expanded on the sub-national or sub-regional level that gives the country a local tool to be used and to assess the differences on different groups of their population or their geographical distribution and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salah Al-Mushami. I agree with you all. The experience in other fields such as crime statistics, building communities, statistical communities, and working closely regionally, for instance, in the case of victimization service in Latin America with the Center of Excellence that Salome led for several years, Salome Flores and Adrian Franco, helped countries to internalize this type of guidance and also to advance in standardization. So yes, that is very important. I agree with you all. And I thank you for your insights, for your suggestions. and for the time you have devoted to this discussion. Thank you very much. And now we are closing this roundtable. Thank you very much. And now I give back the floor to Mr. Joao.
Actually, I will
take over
from you, Oscar.
Hey, Marie. Thank you.
Sure. So, greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I'm very pleased to moderate this second session on behalf of UNDP. It flows very well from the discussion we've had, because in this session we will be presenting to you the work of two task teams that have been working very hard over the past 2 years to start developing internationally harmonized methodologies on 2 dimensions of governance, which are perhaps some of the least mature in methodological terms. So we will hear today from the co-chairs of these 2 task teams on the dimensions of participation in political and public affairs and non-discrimination and equality. Just before they start the presentation, I do want to highlight that this is very exciting work because it is so entirely led and owned by statistical offices primarily, but also a very wide range of other experts in the area of discrimination and participation. So it's been very inspiring and impressive, I should say, to see members showing up on a monthly basis, if not more frequently, over the past 2 years to contribute to these very rigorous debates that and discussions that we've had on how to design methodologies that would be applicable across a very wide range of national contexts. So without further ado, I will now pass it over to our 3 co-chairs for these 2 task teams. So I will first introduce them to you. It's Vebjorn Allenslid from Statistics Norway, who chairs the participation task team. Cirila Gutierrez Espino from the Statistical Office in Peru, who co-chairs the task team on discrimination, along with Marjut Pietiläinen from Statistics Finland. So please, Cirila, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches con todos y todas. En la reunión del día de hoy realizaremos el balance del trabajo de los 2 equipos del grupo de Praia, el de no discriminación e igualdad y del equipo sobre participación en asuntos políticos y públicos. También identificaremos áreas prioritarias en las que el grupo debería centrarse en los 2 años restantes antes de finalizar su segundo mandato en el año 2025. La reunión de hoy tiene la siguiente agenda. Realizaremos una breve introducción referente al mandato de los grupos de trabajo, así como de las próximas reuniones que desarrollarán los 2 equipos. Asimismo, analizaremos los cuestionarios de las encuestas sobre participación y de discriminación. El tercer tema, trataremos acerca del guía del uso de datos administrativos para estadísticas de participación y discriminación. Y finalmente tendremos conclusiones y los próximos pasos a seguir. El grupo, vamos a recordar el mandato de los equipos de trabajo. El grupo de Praia ha formulado su plan de trabajo para su segundo mandato, que abarca del año 2020 al 2025, tomando en consideración los resultados de una extensa consulta a sus miembros y a los principales agentes del campo de las estadísticas sobre gobernanza. En el primer pilar de su plan de trabajo referido al trabajo metodológico, el grupo de Praia propone basarse en las recomendaciones formuladas en el Manual de Gobernanza para seguir desarrollando orientaciones, normas e instrumentos internacionales con el fin de medir las 8 dimensiones de la gobernanza y en particular en lo que respecta a las dimensiones para las que las metodologías están menos desarrolladas. Más específicamente, en este segundo mandato del Grupo Praia, se solicitó a cada equipo desarrollar 2 productos. Elaborar un módulo de encuesta para que las oficinas nacionales de estadística lo incorporen a una encuesta de hogares o de población que se encuentre en ejecución. Esto permitirá servir de base para producir estadísticas comparables a nivel mundial sobre estas 2 dimensiones de gobernanza. El otro producto es elaborar un documento de orientación sobre la recolección de datos administrativos para la producción de estadísticas sobre las 2 dimensiones de interés, con recomendaciones sobre el aseguramiento de la calidad, el registro de datos, la vinculación con otras fuentes, el cálculo de otros indicadores y otros aspectos similares. ¿Quiénes son los miembros de los equipos de trabajo, de estos 2 equipos? Los miembros somos, pues, una comunidad muy activa de productores y usuarios de datos de gobernanza. Más de 100 miembros participan en cada uno de ellos, entre los que se encuentran las oficinas nacionales de estadística, productores de datos administrativos, instituciones de investigación, organismos de las Naciones Unidas, la sociedad civil y el mundo académico. En los 2 años transcurridos se realizaron 14 seminarios web para todos los miembros del equipo de trabajo y 5 reuniones del grupo de trabajo sobre temas específicos, siendo los siguientes. 1. La reunión del grupo de asuntos políticos y públicos. 2. La reunión del grupo de no discriminación e igualdad. 3. Reunión sobre los indicadores del objetivo 16 de los ODS. 4. La reunión del equipo de trabajo sobre participación. Y 5. La 9ª reunión del grupo Praia con el equipo de trabajo de no discriminación e igualdad. Todas las reuniones se encuentran disponibles en la web, los cuales pueden ser consultados por todos los usuarios y miembros de este grupo. Ahora vamos a tratar los 2 cuestionarios modelos que se desarrolló y cuáles fueron los criterios que se siguieron para su elaboración. En primer lugar, los cuestionarios, el primer criterio muy importante es el vínculo claro con la formulación de políticas, evaluación de las necesidades de información prioritaria de los responsables de la formulación de políticas en todo el mundo. 2. Marcos conceptuales y de medición acordados, basándose en los marcos ya introducidos en el Manual de Gobernanza. 3. Se realizó una revisión exhaustiva de las preguntas de las encuestas relevantes, existentes ya en cuestionarios internacionales, regionales y nacionales. Se aprovechó ya la experiencia realizada en todo el mundo. 4. Se hizo un proceso de diseño de encuestas altamente colaborativo. Fuerte propiedad de este proceso por todos los grupos para implementar cada uno en sus países. Asimismo, es imperativo limitar los costos de las encuestas para una producción estadística sostenible, tener un enfoque modular con preguntas centrales o cuestionarios independientes con preguntas opcionales para un análisis más profundo. Seguidamente vamos a tratar cuál ha sido el proceso del diseño de la encuesta para ambos cuestionarios. Como sabemos, en el año 2021 se conformaron 2 equipos de trabajo en el cumplimiento del mandato de la Comisión de Estadística de las Naciones Unidas. Desarrollaron las normas e instrumentos estadísticos internacionales para medir estas 2 dimensiones. Para elaborar los cuestionarios, los equipos de trabajo realizaron un mapeo global de preguntas de encuestas relevantes ya existentes en todos los países. Revisamos las experiencias nacionales e internacionales e intercambiamos experiencias entre las oficinas nacionales de estadística, lo que nos permitió identificar temas claves que fueron incorporados en el cuestionario armonizado. En el año 2022 se diseñó un módulo de encuesta armonizada donde identificamos las posibles preguntas básicas y las preguntas opcionales. En el año 2023 se realizaron 2 actividades: la ejecución de la prueba cognitiva y la revisión del cuestionario con los aportes logrados con la prueba cognitiva. Y en lo que resta de este año haremos esta actividad. Tenemos programado para el año 2024, para el mes de mayo, realizar la prueba de campo o prueba piloto, que muchas veces en muchos países lo llamamos, para finalizar con la elaboración del cuestionario y de la guía de implementación de las 2 dimensiones. Borrador que debe ser revisado y listo para las pruebas de campo. Esto se analizará en una reunión presencial con los países que hicieron la prueba cognitiva. Entre los meses de junio y septiembre del año 2025, se realizará la difusión, consulta global sobre el borrador final del cuestionario y las directrices de implementación. Y en marzo del año 2026 se presentará a la Comisión de Estadística de las Naciones Unidas para su aprobación. Ahora voy a hablar del equipo de trabajo sobre no discriminación e igualdad, del cual copresidimos las Oficinas Nacionales de Estadística de Finlandia y con el INE de Perú. Este trabajo lo realizamos con el soporte técnico del Programa de las Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo y con la Oficina del Alto Comisionado de las Naciones Unidas para los Derechos Humanos. En este equipo de trabajo participamos 265 personas de distintas organizaciones, siendo el 51% corresponden a las oficinas nacionales de estadística. ¿Cuáles fueron las características del cuestionario modelo sobre discriminación y desigualdad? ¿Y qué temas? Este cuestionario tiene los siguientes temas. Primero, se mide la prevalencia percibida de discriminación o acoso en la zona donde reside o vive la persona. Segundo, la experiencia personal de discriminación o acoso, eso para ver el ODS del 16, el indicador 16B1. El tercero, los ámbitos de la vida donde las experiencias de discriminación o acoso ocurren con mayor frecuencia. Siguientes son los efectos psicológicos y conductuales de la discriminación o acoso en las víctimas. Y finalmente, analizamos la denuncia de los incidentes de discriminación o acoso, ante quién se denuncia y el nivel de satisfacción que han obtenido de las denuncias. Si no hubo denuncia, los motivos para los cuales no denunciaron. También en este cuestionario incluimos las experiencias personales del delito de odio o discursos de odio. Si se denunciaron, los motivos también para los que no denunciaron y el grado de satisfacción para los que denunciaron con las denuncias. Incluimos también las actitudes hacia grupos minoritarios, personas con diferentes características sociodemográficas, por ejemplo, nivel de comodidad al interactuar con grupos en diversas situaciones. Incluimos también las actitudes sobre la igualdad de género en la esfera pública y privada, actitudes sobre la igualdad de trato de los grupos, multiculturalidad y la integración, la conciencia pública y aprobación de los esfuerzos nacionales para luchar contra la discriminación, la concientización pública sobre los recursos disponibles para las víctimas. Finalmente, estas son las características de la encuesta. Ahora doy pase a mi compañera Marjut, ¿no? Para que siga exponiendo en este evento. Muchas gracias.
So thank you, Cyrilla. I will continue now on the other task team, the task team on participation in political and public affairs. This group is chaired by Statistics Norway with technical support from UNDP and UN Women. Since the start of our work, we have had a series of virtual meetings. And we have counted and found that around 149 distinct participants have been a part of this process so far. And a majority of them have been from NSOs, but also participants from Eurostat, from Statafric, from IDEA, and I see some of them are also members, so are also participating here today. So that's very good. So we say this just to emphasize that this is not a solo project from our side. This is a very collaborative process. You can take the next one. As I said, it's been a rigorous process over a series of a good period of time. During that, we have come up with a draft questionnaire, and the draft questionnaire is built on examples from different national and regional instruments and surveys, and we have gathered the different what we thought were the best questions and included them in what we see as kind of a version 1.0. This version consists of 3 main sub-dimensions: one on participation in electoral processes, the second one on participation in political and civic life, and the third one, what we can call the enabling environment of participation. The general take on this is that the questionnaire is to be used in a post-election survey, ideally as recent as possible after the most recent election. That could be a national presidential parliamentary election or a state local election. For instance, in Norway, we had our local elections 3 weeks ago, and we are now started to test the questionnaire on those who participated in the local elections in Norway. One thing that we are particularly proud of is that the questionnaire also accounts for diverse electoral registration systems. And this is something that we believe has not been covered in kind of all other global surveys of this nature, where we have facilitated so that we accommodate for those systems that have kind of an active registration procedure or a passive or a hybrid one. So, for instance, in the Northern European countries, then you don't register to vote, whereas in more in the Anglo-American countries' elections, you have a more active procedure in order to register for voting. And we try to accommodate those different situations in our questionnaire. Next one. So these are the thematic areas that are covered. The first one on participation in electoral processes. We look at questions concerning barriers to registrations, reasons for not voting, problems that voters can encounter when they go to vote, how kind of the electoral locations are organized and so on. Participation in election-related activities, where we showed support for candidates on social media, attended a rally, etc. Different obstacles for the participating, and also experiences of political intimidation, whether you have experienced that. And the idea here is that we want to give policy makers better data to kind of understand their specific national situation. The second theme is participation in political and civic life. And then we can take the next slide, yes. So here we have questions concerning political parties, membership, whether at least one political party in the country represents your view reasonably well, whether you're a member in political and civic organizations, different forms of political and social action. And the third theme is what we can call the enabling environment of participation, everything that comes around this, interest in political and public affairs, main source of information on political and public affairs, online discussions, attitudes towards women as political leaders, attitudes towards minorities. We try here to not only to have a more kind of a modern touch to the questionnaire, with covering social media, but also then questions on how different minorities are reflected in the democratic process. So these were kind of the three themes that we cover. Then we will move on now to say a little bit about the test design to evaluate the questionnaires. Not about the content, but then over to the testing of the content. So here we have looked upon a set of criteria for our testing. The test designed to evaluate both questionnaires. Here the first one is very important, that we want to include as many as possible of NSOs from a diverse group of contexts, different types of electoral registration systems, different forms of discrimination, etc. This has been kind of a starting point. Then we have we want to have as a broader group with test respondents with varied characteristics, age, gender, minority status, area where you live in the country, levels of engagement, etc. There next, we want to test also problems that may occur due to administration mode, in terms of how we distribute the questionnaire. Is it self-administration, interview administration, or some kind of mixed mode approach? And to test the different outcomes on that. The test process is meant to be iterative, where problems identified in one round of testing lead to adjustments for the next round. And we see that there are some challenges with that, at least when we do things at different steps, and countries are carrying out testing at different steps. Then it's challenging to all the way have a control on which version we are using, and how to implement the different inputs that we get from the different testing. Lastly, capacity building of NSOs taking part in the testing process is instrumental and very important. There has to be learning from the process, and we believe really that there are. When it comes to participation in diverse setting, on the next slide, we show a list of countries that have started or plan to start the testing. And this is from the questionnaire on participation. And you can see there are different, in terms of regions are represented, languages are represented. And it's important for us to emphasize that these are mostly NSOs that have done this on their own, using their own resources. So there is we believe that there is a good buy-in from countries in this process. Then for the next slides, I will hand over to my colleague, Karianne Lund. She has been instrumental in setting up the test design, and she will talk very briefly about how we have organized this. Over to you, Karianne.
Thank you. So to prepare the participation questionnaire for global implementation, we set up a test series with several steps. And in between all these steps, an extensive working group has been analyzing results from testing and preparing a next revised questionnaire draft. A natural first step was to do an expert appraisal of the current questionnaire draft to identify and counteract the risk for measurement errors before involving any test respondents. This is a kind of a desktop review done by experts in the office. And the next step allowed us to expose the revised questionnaire draft to realistic test respondents in qualitative interviews. These tests were done in several countries and really underlined the importance of cross-cultural testing, as some of the questions performed very differently in different settings. We are now about to launch a protocol-based structured testing, where we will test a new revised version of the questionnaire to even more respondents. And this is to get quantifiable data on the performance of each question, and also to get a hint on the statistical impact of possible measurement errors. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Karianne. Then I hand over to Marie to continue.
Great, thank you. So we will go to the next slide, please. Yes, we will invite our colleague, Mr. Fafunmi from the Nigerian Statistical Office to share with us very briefly his experience in testing the draft questionnaire in Nigeria. So Mr. Fafunmi, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to share our experience from National Bureau of Statistics Nigeria on the participation in politics and the political affairs questionnaire. It is quite an interesting experience for us as a National Statistics Office, and we are glad to be part of this because we believe that this will also add to our capacity in collecting administrative governance statistics. So by way of background information, so let me just let us know when this cognitive interview was conducted in Nigeria. So this was done in between July 20 to July 26, 2023. And it was carried out in FCT, Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where respondents were selected across gender and also across sectors, that I mean rural and urban area. So, and for understanding of Nigeria electoral system, you have to first be a citizen and register as a voter if you attain age of 18 and above. And if you have registered, then you are qualified to vote. And for this exercise, we use the just concluded the last presidential election, which involved the presidential election, the state, the Senate, and the House of Representatives as our example that we use. So, and for Nigerian election, so during the election, you vote in person. So there's no proxy to your voting. And during the election, businesses and the workplace are closed down, and you go to the place of vote, and you cast your vote. And before then, you are, as I've mentioned, you are registered by Independent National Electoral Commission of Nigeria. And once you are issued your voter's card, then you are eligible to vote. So our observation during this exercise was that the interview took an average of 1 hour, 30 minutes. And we found out that respondents in the urban area were more open to speak with the interviewer and discuss their electoral related experience with us compared to people from the rural area. And also the rural area, because of the situation in the country, many of them are expecting much from the government. And therefore, when you are asking questions relating to government or elections, so they are expecting things from a government, and we have to use our expertise as a National Statistics Office, and also to let them understand that the data collection is also to help them. And that is when they later agree to attend to our interview. So we also noticed that some of the respondents didn't want to state their age. So instead, they were giving us a kind of bracket age. That is maybe between age this or that. So the actual age, they didn't want to state their age. And it's not good. So we probe them further, and we are able to get information concerning their age. And other findings that we also see during the test was that some respondents complained about the length of the questionnaire and time duration of the interview. For example, some of the questions are a little bit ambiguous to the respondent. For example, the question PR 4.1, most respondents frown at this question since the voting system in Nigeria is only allow in-person voting. So they don't have much to say about that. So again, when you look at the question PR 6F, some person said, since we all know that the election day is always a public holiday, everyone has time to go and vote. So these are some of the response that we have in that. So then the word intimidation and coerce in question PR10 was confusion to some of the respondents in the rural area. So we have to explain and simplify some of these questions to them before they can respond. So we have a few observation in this, and we were able to maneuver that by explaining to them. Then also where we have questions that are scaled. So take for example, PR20.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
ask you to wrap up. We are running out of time. So if you have some final remarks.
Okay, so what I just need to say is that our recommendation is that we look at the questionnaire, then make some clarification, more simpler, then also the length of the questions should also be made more a little bit accommodating to respondent to answer. So in general, so this is very, very interesting to us, and we learn a lot from it, and it's good for us to have governance statistics if we properly implement this questionnaire very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to specify with respect to the length of the interviews, I think it's important to stress that you applied a cognitive testing protocol, right? With several questions aimed at checking whether your respondents understood the concepts, the words that were being used in the questions, right? So when you're referring to the length of the questionnaire, you are not referring to the questionnaire per se, but actually to the protocol that we use to assess how well the questions were understood by respondents, right?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And that is what we did, because we have to explain to them, because it's not how the question, the number of questions, but the time taken to explain to them before they understand and they give us a good response to the questions. That's exactly what I meant.
Okay, very good. So we will now invite another colleague, this time from Colombia. Alejandro, welcome. And it's interesting that we have Alejandro with us, because the testing done in Colombia is on a much wider scale. So in Nigeria, we applied the Think Aloud method, which is a very less structured approach to testing, where we let respondents think aloud when they hear the question. So we want to follow their thinking process as they answer the question. But in Colombia, the statistical office offered to integrate some of these questions that we have in our draft questionnaire into an existing questionnaire that is currently being administered in Colombia on a national sample. So it's effectively a field testing of the draft questionnaire. And I will let Alejandro tell you more about that. Please, Alejandro.
Thank you, Marie, and everyone. On behalf of the National Department of Statistics of Colombia, we express our gratitude for the opportunity to participate in this meeting and tell you about our experience as part of a Praia task team on participation in political and public affairs. Since the last decade, our country has been exploring the production of statistics on governance. Therefore, having a work community has given us support and technical tools to reinforce the need to have better data on issues related to our political systems and the relationship between government and citizens. Having standardized instruments such as the Classification of Statistical Activities, as well as the technical experience of colleagues from other statistical offices, represents a step forward to facilitate comparability in measurement and respond to these new data challenges. After a great effort to secure resources, we are currently collecting information for the 7th round of our political culture survey, incorporating recommendations that emerge during conversations with our colleagues in the task team to design the questionnaire on participation in political and public affairs. We hope at the end of the year to share with you feedbacks about how it works during collection, based on the information provided to us by the survey collection team during interviews with respondents. And next year, we will gladly share the results of the new round of the political culture survey. Regarding our experience in the working group, we especially value the possibility of sharing our experience and being part of the construction of guidelines and technical recommendations that allow more statistical office to have these tools as support and incentive to start or continue with the regular statistical production of data on citizen participation.
I have to stop
and for the statistical offices that have already started this path, the task group constitutes a reference for permanent consultations through which we can not only count on technical support, but also allows us to make visible the need to have statistical information with high quality standards and the need to strengthen the use of this data as a valuable input for monitoring public policies. Finally, we want to recognize the efforts of all our colleagues in the task group and their valuable contributions to produce better data and build community to share and generate evidence-based knowledge.
Yeah, thank you, Alejandro. I'm not sure you're on the English channel, but I hope, I don't know, I'm having messages that interpreters had difficulty, but I hope we managed to, in the other channels, I hope colleagues were able to listen to you. Thank you so much for your intervention.
Thank you.
I will now hand it over to Mariut, who co-chairs the task team on discrimination, to carry on with the presentation. Thank you. Mariut, I think you're muted. Or okay, please try again. Can you speak, Mariut?
Some feedback from the background.
You hear me now?
Yes, we hear you now. Maybe,
can you hear me?
Yes, can you turn
okay.
Maybe
I think my picture is freezing, so.
Okay, yeah, we hear you. You can turn off your video, maybe.
Okay, okay. I will turn the video off. Okay. I tell now about very briefly about the cognitive testing process. It has been tested and will tests are still going on in different regions.
Sorry, can you please turn on the video? It's important for the interpreters, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, once again, sorry about this. Cognitive testing was tested across a diversity of regional contexts and languages. The tests are going to be and have been tested in some countries and all together in 4 continents and different countries and different languages. I think it's very important and crucial that we have these tests in different areas and languages, since the topic of non-discrimination and equality is also very sensitive. And we need to test it in different cultural contexts. So we have in Latin America, we have Peru and Colombia in Spanish, and then in Africa, we have Madagascar in Malgache, language Côte d'Ivoire in French, and Capo Verde in Portuguese. And in Europe, we have Ireland, naturally in English, and then Vietnamese in Vietnam, Asia. And let's go further now. I want to stress that the high commitment of the NSOs in testing the questionnaire is very important. Mostly the they self-finance the testing and contributed their own survey expertise, which is very excellent thing, of course, with the support from the core team. And this commitment was very crucial thing to succeed in developing the questionnaire and get feedback. So thanks to the NSOs for that. So let's go to the how the testing was proceeded. There has been altogether two rounds, or will be a second round. Two test rounds, and then and then this questionnaire has been revised, and then there will be a webinar later on and piloting. And in the first group of national statistical organizations, there were Peru and Cabo Verde who tested in protocol-based method, and Vietnam and Madagascar tested the questionnaire with a think aloud method. And of course, before those tests, we have the expert appraisal by EU Agency for Fundamental Rights, which was very, very important. And all these tests started in July after a long discussions of the and meetings and consulting things and learning from different surveys. And then after the first group of tests, the questionnaire was revised, and this happened till September last month. So, and now the second group of NSOs are testing the revised questionnaire. It started in September, and there in the second group there are Ireland, Colombia, Cote d'Ivoire. And the questionnaire will be revised again after these inputs and experiences. And in November, a webinar will be organized to discuss the results we have got so far with the rest of the task team. And then in next 2 years, piloting and field testing will be conducted. And then this was very, very briefly. Next, I will give a hand over to Cyrilla to tell about the Peru experiences. Please, Cyrilla, the floor
Muchas
is yours.
gracias, Marie. Voy a describir muy brevemente algunas características de la encuesta. La fase de planificación lo ejecutamos entre los meses de marzo y junio del año 2023. La metodología que hemos usado es la basada en un protocolo de prueba cognitiva estandarizado, utilizando la técnica de sondeo verbal, y una codificación armonizada aplicada para mantener la comparabilidad de los resultados con los otros países que han utilizado, digamos, la misma metodología. Ubicación, lo hemos hecho en 6 ciudades, incluida la capital Lima, y 5 ciudades seleccionadas de acuerdo a su ubicación geográfica, diversidad étnico-cultural y zonas de frontera, ¿no? Para poder entrevistar también a las poblaciones migrantes. Ha durado 5 días, del 24 al 28 de junio, ¿no? Y una muestra de 41 personas entrevistadas en las 6 ciudades y en 2 grupos. Un grupo con experiencia de discriminación, que obtuvimos un listado de los organismos no gubernamentales que habían tratado estos temas de discriminación. Y el otro grupo lo hemos extraído de la encuesta nacional de hogares que el INEGI ejecuta de manera continua todos los años. Algunos hallazgos de la prueba cognitiva La prueba cognitiva que hemos realizado cumplió un papel fundamental, ¿no?, en la identificación de los diferentes problemas que pudimos haber tenido de esta importante encuesta y tan necesaria para el Perú, ¿no? Tales como que algunas preguntas que los entrevistados tuvieron dificultad para comprender, ¿no?, que se eliminarán o se podrán reformular de otra manera. Estamos en esa etapa. También hemos observado preguntas con periodo de referencia que los entrevistados tuvieron dificultad para recordar, y preguntas que en algunos casos les causó una reacción, ¿no?, especialmente a aquellas personas que habían sufrido discriminación, ¿no? Entonces, que les recordó y hubo escenas de llanto, ¿no? Entonces, hemos observado eso. También hemos aprendido sobre la experiencia de los entrevistadores, ¿no?, que han ido a realizar esta prueba y cómo se comportan en la administración de este tipo de cuestionarios. Es de mencionar que acá en el INEI Perú ya utilizamos esta metodología cuando incorporamos nuevas preguntas en nuestras encuestas y aprovechamos ese backup, ¿no?, de personal que estaba usando. También de esta experiencia de las pruebas cognitivas hemos visto la necesidad, pues, de capacitar mejor a los entrevistadores, ya que este es un tema nuevo, ¿no?, que y tan importante para el país, y la capacitación es fundamental, reforzar más la capacitación hacia las personas que van a salir acá. En general, las preguntas fueron respondidas sin mayor dificultad por los encuestados del área urbana, ¿no?, y que tenían mayor nivel educativo. Y también por aquellos que habían sufrido alguna vez en su vida algún tipo de discriminación. Los entrevistados de las zonas rurales tuvieron más dificultad para comprender algunas preguntas. Es posible, ¿no?, o que tengamos que simplificar algunas preguntas o, en todo caso, mejorar la capacitación a los entrevistados para poder llegar a la población. Eso sería, de manera resumida, la experiencia de Perú en la aplicación de la prueba. Estamos en un proceso de redacción y de análisis más minucioso, ¿no?, para poder mejorar y reorientar de algunos pasos y algunas preguntas, pero en general hubo una reacción muy importante de la gente, ¿no?, que hicimos esta prueba, de la importancia de esta encuesta, ¿no?, en el país, un país muy diverso, ¿no?, étnico y culturalmente, y que estos temas son necesarios de medir. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Cyrilla. Excellent. We will now invite our colleague from the Statistical Office in Vietnam, Nga, are you with us? To share her experience very briefly. Nga, we are running out of time, unfortunately, but please tell us your experience in testing the questionnaire in Vietnam. Oh, did we lose Nga? Oh, I see you. Are you on mute? No. Unfortunately, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. No, I'm sorry. I think we'll have to carry on, and maybe we can try with you again at the end of the presentation. We'll let you time to look into that. So Mariut, please, over to you for the next slide.
Thank you again. Let's hope that my voice is now. Okay, let's go to the second task of the task team of non-discrimination and equality, the guidance on the use of administrative data for statistics on discrimination and inequality. The guidance has been prepared in collaboration with a European Commission subgroup on equality data, UN Women Africa, and UNDP and OHCHR, The guidance will advise how to strengthen the collection and the use of administrative data to better measure and monitor trends on discrimination and inequality, and to generate the necessary data to inform policymaking in this area. We know that it's very useful, and particularly useful. These administrative data sources are useful and important in measuring indirect discrimination. We know that inequalities in development outcomes, for example, in health, education, work, and housing, etc. The guidance will contain also regional mapping of good practices. Of course, we know there are challenges and opportunities associated with this data, and we need this mapping and mappings of different areas and regions to get these practices for the use of all of us, and how we can use this data in statistical production. Because it's important that we have a wide range of mappings of different areas, we will seek your experiences very soon. We will definitely need your inputs, and I hope that you are willing to participate in this sharing your experiences. And this was very briefly, and now I will hand over to Ionika, who will tell about the guidance of electoral administrative data.
Hello, everybody.
Thank
it's
you.
good to see you again. My name is Ionika Berevoescu, and I worked at UN Women. It is my pleasure today to say a few words about the guidance on electoral administrative data that is going to be developed by the task team on participation. First of all, why it is important to have a dedicated guidance on this topic. Electoral administrative data produced by electoral management bodies in the process of administering elections are a cost-effective public source of information on inclusive political participation, and quite unique in terms of the scope of data, in terms of potential granularity of data, as well as the cycle of updates which are closely linked to the election schedule of elections of a country. However, this area of statistics is new, very new in terms of global statistical standards. The first time this topic was addressed was in the Handbook on Governance Statistics only 3 years ago, and only briefly. On the ground, the integration of this area into the national statistical systems varies. There are national statistical offices that completely integrated this area of work in their regular work schedule. However, some NSOs are still hesitant. It is our hope that this guidance on electoral administrative data is going to help building the partnerships between the national statistical offices and electoral management bodies, and make the data available to support national policy making and global monitoring. In terms of the approach, we are, of course, building on the Handbook on Governance Statistics, and we aim to ensure consistency with existing guidelines on administrative data. So basically, we aim to have detailed and practical information on 4 types of electoral registers and data systems, including voter registration, voter turnout, candidates, and elected candidates data system. On one side, we aim to show how electoral data system may vary across countries on several aspects. Some EMBs have manual systems of data, some digital systems. There are centralized, decentralized systems. There are differences in data maintenance over time and interoperability between these 4 types of data systems and between these data systems and other administrative data in a country. On the other hand, we are looking into good practices that exist with the national statistical offices, how they help integrate this type of administrative data in the national statistical systems, and even more, adding value to this data through data linkages, global reporting, targeting analysis to stakeholders, and for a wide audiences. Similar to other methodological work undertaken by the Praia Group, engagement with the members is paramount to ensuring that the guidance we are preparing is going to speak to a variety of contexts and respond to the needs of the national statistical offices in this variety of context. This concludes my presentation, and I'm handing it now over to our chair of the task team on participation, Björn. Over to you.
Thank you, Ionica. We are a few minutes on overtime, so I will very briefly sum up the last slide with the conclusions and the next steps. As you have heard, the task teams are developing 4 products, the 2 model survey questionnaires, plus the implementation guidelines that goes along with those. Then in the last 2 slides, you have heard about the 2 guides on the use of administrative data and how we are working with that. And in order to continue this in the last part of this year and also going forward next year, we need your continued strong engagement for the following period. 1, to field test and pilot the model questionnaires in diverse contexts. The idea here is that ideally we want some testing of the national machinery to increase kind of the data volume of what we collect in order to have some analysis of the collected data and to see how solid data are and to see different consistency between the different questions. For the admin part, we want more examples. We want your contributions to the 2 admin data guides. They will not be any good if we don't get the good examples from a diverse group of countries. This is something we are seeking your assistance in. Finally, financial resources are needed for the field testing and the piloting in 2024, 2025. In order to ensure that we have a diverse group of countries that are represented. And with that final plea and call for more funds, I will hand over to Marie again.
Thank you very much, Björn. We are very short in time again, but let's at least give 2 minutes for you to pose any question to the task teams, if you have some. Any question on the very extensive work that's been done on participation and discrimination? If no question, we will carry on right away with the 3rd session. Oh, I see Dorcas from Uganda. Yes, Dorcas, please.
Thank you. My name is Dorcas Nabkwas from Uganda Bureau of Statistics. I'm happy to be part of this discussion, and thanks to the presenters for the good work so far done. We intend to undertake another governance, peace and security survey quite soon. Preparations have begun. And learning from the different presentations, I wanted to inquire whether we have a manual of instructions to the questionnaire, to which we can benchmark and possibly pick some of the concepts and definitions that are standard across the board. And then one presenter talked about training, the need to have a detailed training. I'm wondering whether consideration for translation in the local languages was done, because with experience, we realize that if the questions are translated in the local languages, then the interviewers understand better. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll quickly answer to tell you that the instruments, if you're interested in seeing the questionnaire as it stands now, you can access this material on the website that we shared earlier. But please do also write to us, any one of you. We can also email these documents to you with great pleasure. But please note that there is the SDG 16 hub, where if you go on the page of the Praia Group, the task teams, you will find all the documentation that's been produced by the 2 task teams since their creation. And on the local translation, we have relied on our partners in the statistical offices to help us with this. It's indeed very important for the training, but also, of course, for the administration of the questionnaire to have good translations. But of course, we rely on our local partners to carry this work. I think, unfortunately, we are so behind, we will have to move on. And so I will pass it over to Ronald for the 3rd session. And if we have time at the end, we will be able to discuss further this work and the other topics. So thank you, Ronald, over to you.
Thank you very much, Marie, and good day to everyone. I'm Ronald Jensen from the United Nations Statistics Division in New York. Some of you might know me, but not really related to this field of work on governance statistics. So the reason I am here is specifically on the link of the relation of the Praia Group towards the Statistical Commission, and in that regard, what the next steps and the priorities are for the Praia Group going forward. So that's what we'll discuss in this segment of today's meeting. And before I go to Liliana on her presentation, just a few initial remarks. So and I think that's what we started out today, is to see where the governance statistics, the work on governance statistics is where it is currently and where it wants to go in the future. There is a discussion to see if we can get international standards or international recommendations in the field of governance statistics. And if we want to do so, those international recommendations would have to be presented to the Statistical Commission and would have to be endorsed by all of the member states. That kind of work would entail having concepts, definitions, methodology, and then further down the line also capacity building in this area, as well as international reporting in these kinds of statistics. The bar for international recommendations is fairly high. All member states need to be on board, and we have to see how far in this work, in this journey of the Praia Group, of the way on governance statistics, how far we currently are. The handbook, which was produced a few years ago, is of course a good way of showing current practices in this field, of initially defining what governance statistics is, It's also the first stepping stone towards the development of more concrete work, as now has been done by the 2 task teams on non-discrimination and participation. The questions to be asked by the Praia Group is if the work in the coming years will still be on providing countries with good practices and guidance on how to measure parts of governance statistics in particular areas. If we could go to a global standard, or if some of those standards are still developed at regional level or in particular contexts. So those are the kind of questions which need to be asked, and we will have to see where we get to. And then if the ambition is there by the Praia Group to go towards international standards, then the question also is, what is the best mechanism to get there? And one of the mechanisms which we have discussed internally with the Secretariat is to see if there should be an expert group on governance statistics, which would have a global representation in the group, and which would be focused on trying to deliver international standards in the areas of governance statistics. But we're not there yet. And I think I want to hand it now to Liliana to give it a bit of an overview of where we are and where we are going to. Liliana, up to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jensen. And I'm Liliana Monteiro. I'm from Praia Group Secretariat, and we will be discussing this way forward to governance statistics and to Praia Group. Next slide, please, May. So talking a little bit about our journey until now, about Praia Group journey. Praia Group was established by the United Nations Statistical Commission in March 2015. And it was the first and only city group led by an African country, by Cabo Verde. Praia Group developed the handbook on governance statistics that was endorsed by UN Statistical Commission in March 2020. And our first mandate was renewed in 2020. We had launched 2 task teams that you saw the updates of their work until now. The task teams on participation and in non-discrimination and equality. We launched those task teams in 2021. And at this moment, we are in the midpoint, over the midpoint of our second mandate, that is from 2020 to 2025. As you already heard in the first panel that we had, in 2023, we had governance statistics included as a new domain of the classification of statistical activities, and that inclusion was aligned with the handbook on governance statistics. So we here at Praia Group, we can feel really proud of our journey until now. Next. In our plan of work from 2020 to 2025, we have 3 pillars: methodological work, capacity development, and advocacy. But until now, our focus has mainly been on methodological work. Next. And now that, as I said before, we are over the midpoint of our second mandate, we need to decide what are the priorities for the 2 remaining years of our current mandate. This time is a crucial time because even though now governance statistics is a standalone domain of official statistics, we have a long way to go. And the most pressing need for NSOs that are interested in producing governance statistics is to have access to robust international harmonized methodologies and instruments on all dimensions of governance. Next, please. So because of that, our top priority in the Praia Group is to continue and intensifying the excellent work of our task teams. But to do that, we need additional resources so we can finalize this complex methodological work that the task teams have undertaken. Next. So we need more resources, and these resources are resources for technical coordination, expert support to the task teams, so they can continue to work on the survey models and in the admin data guides that they presented a few minutes ago. And we need resources for the field testing of the draft questionnaires by NSOs across diverse contexts. And this is very important because for we to have a robust instrument to measure governance statistics, this instrument has to be tested, has to be experimented in different contexts, in different countries with different realities. So this is very important that we do this field testing in most countries possible. Next, please. Another priority that we may have, if we have the resources available, is to establish new task teams to support the development of harmonized methodologies on other dimensions of governance, because as you heard, we are working currently in 2 dimensions. Next. According to a survey that we conducted early this year, the Praia Group members also highlighted that capacity development is a priority for them. So here at the Secretariat, we suggest that mapping governance statistical production by NSOs around the world can be something that we will do in the next 2 years. And also promoting peer-to-peer mentoring between NSOs. Next. Another priority that we think is very important is, together with partners that are already working in other dimensions of governance statistics, to disseminate this work. We think it's very important that we hold webinars with partners that are working with internationally approved methodologies. For instance, in the dimension of absence of corruption, where we have UNODC that is working in that dimension. And also to do webinars with with partners that are doing regional efforts to develop the harmonized methodologies. For example, OECD that is working on dimension of trust. Next. So the way forward, as Mr. Jensen was talking, seems to be leading us to a new path, because this is a crucial moment for the field of governance statistics, with the governance as a new domain and this need that we have for international harmonized methodologies for all dimensions of governance. So as Mr. Jensen said, to have methodologies that are internationally approved, we have to do a global consultation process. And this bar is very high to get this approval through this global consultation process. Next. So, as Mr. Jensen just mentioned, an expert group may be a better vehicle to this global consultation process. So the question that we pose here is, does the time come to upgrade Praia City Group to an expert group with formal representation from member states from all regions? Next. We as a secretariat, we think it is, and we want to explore this option with you. And we also want to hear your thoughts about other possibilities that we may not be seeing at the moment. Next. As we said, we need financial resources. And until now, UNDP's Global Policy Center and Governance has been our main provider of technical and financial support, but we need more resources, human and financial resources. Next. Next slide. Okay. So because of that, we also, no, go back, May, please. So we also, can you please go back, May?
Yes.
So we welcome you to share your thoughts with us on how we can join hands to mobilize this financial and technical support that we need to continue, because we need to continue to lay down strong foundations for the new domain of governance statistics. So we thank you for your presence, and we thank you for all the contribution that you gave to us until now, and we believe we are going to continue to get your contribution from now on. So now I pass the floor to Mr. Ronald Jensen to continue to moderate this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liliana, about sketching the journey until now and about posing this important question about what is next for the Praia Group. So with those questions, we want to go to our discussants, our panel of discussants, yeah, thank you. Maybe you could put the question back on one of the slides, prior slides. The question posed about where is the Praia Group going to go next? What would be the opinion of the various members of the Praia Group and the countries in here? So I would like to go first to the UNDP Global Policy Center of Governance, to Arvin Gadgil, to give his view on this. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Ronald. Unfortunately, Arvin sends his regrets. He's joining, he's listening in, but he's ill, so I'll be delivering the remarks on his behalf, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So, thank you. So first of all, I wanted to thank the Praia Group for the invitation for UNDP to share a few reflections on this session. We would like to start by congratulating the Praia Group for its accomplishments in its 8 years of existence. The Praia Group has been pioneering the work on governance statistics, which is the foundation for the development and structuring of governing processes, accountability, transparency, efficiency, effectiveness, and inclusiveness. We know that the quality of governance is a critical driver of peace and security. It is fundamental to the realization of human rights and key to accelerating progress towards sustainable development. So UNDP, and particularly us here at the Global Policy Center, we've been an active champion in the field of governance, statistics and measurement of governance for over 10 years. And in the last several years, we've been working very closely with the Praia Group on governance statistics in its activities, complementing the work of the Secretariat and the broader membership.
Aparna, I'm sorry, can you slow down a little bit? It's too fast for the interpreters. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. So UNDP, so we would like to also note the excellent progress made so far by the Praia Group in designing internationally harmonized survey instruments on the two critical dimensions of governance, as we heard in the last session, on participation and non-discrimination, that have insufficient international statistical standards at the moment. We recognize that the work requires ample investment and coordination between all stakeholders while ensuring comparability. In this regard, we would like to especially thank the co-chairs Norway, Tunisia, Finland, and Peru for their leadership of the task teams. Over the last several years, we have also been working to support the measurement of SDG 16 in partnership with other UN agencies, as well as in close cooperation with member states. This is just one example of how UN agencies have come together to help solve challenges facing member states. Considerable advances have been made in the establishment of globally comparable methodologies for SDG 16 indicators. The development of these methodologies have been informed by the experience and expertise of many of the members of the Praia Group. But we note that these indicators only tell part of the story, and a more robust set of information is required across the different thematic areas for a holistic understanding on the different dimensions of governance. So for example, we have the methodology on the experience of violence on unsentenced detainees and access to dispute resolution mechanisms under SDG 16, but we need to understand the overall dimension on access to justice. We are beginning to collect data on the SDG 16 indicator on satisfaction with public services, but do not yet have an overall picture on responsiveness. These methodologies being developed by the Praia Group will play a critical role in this regard. It is also important to note that at a time where multilateral action is proving challenging on so many fronts, it is really inspiring to see a community of experts from different backgrounds and fields coming together to push the frontiers of official statistics in an area that's so essential for achieving progress on all other sustainable development goals. We're very pleased as UNDP to have provided the technical support for the task teams to deliver really high quality work that was presented earlier. We would like to encourage the Praia Group to ensure successful completion of the ongoing methodological work on participation and non-discrimination, including sustaining the high levels of participation from national statistics offices from all regions in the next steps in testing and finalizing the frameworks being developed. We also note the need to ensure sustainability of the work of the Praia Group, including, for example, to support the NSOs in field testing, as was mentioned earlier. UNDP, together with the chair and the steering committee members, are exploring how we can work to support resource mobilization efforts on this. At the UNDP Global Policy Center on Governance, we have a dedicated team working with countries around the world to enhance methodological development, international reporting, and country support on SDG 16. And we know that there is high demand for further guidance and experience sharing on the other governance dimensions beyond participation and discrimination. As such, we would encourage the Praia Group to consider launching further work streams on other dimensions of governance where methodological work is already underway, provided the necessary technical support can be secured. Finally, it would be important for the Praia Group to step up its advocacy and international engagement around the methodologies being developed by the Praia Group to ensure broader ownership on the tools that are being developed. To conclude, we'd like to thank Capo Verde as the chair of the Praia Group for their leadership, and UNDP will continue to support the work of the Praia Group and the broader work on governance statistics across all the different streams of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aparna, for this constructive reflection on where the Praia Group is and your views on what substantive work needs to be done next. With that, I want to go to our next discussant. We have Salome Flores from UNODC. Please go ahead, Salome.
Thank you very much, Ronald. Good morning, good evening for those that are on this side of the world. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the efforts that the Praia Group had conducted in the last years. UNODC has participated in this group from the very beginning, especially on the development of the handbook in specific areas on the UNODC mandate. Access to justice, safety and security, and absence of corruption. And for UNODC, the work that this group has been doing is extremely relevant because we do have a lot of coincidences in the different dimensions. And we understand from the beginning of this webinar that governance is such an abstract concept, and transforming or translating such an abstract concept into statistics is not an easy task. And I think that's one of the main challenges that we all know. But I think another second challenge that we at UNODC faced when we were working, trying to promote a roadmap to improve the quality and availability of crime and criminal justice statistics, was the fact that national statistical offices are not the institutions that are normally responsible for collecting data under the dimensions associated to governance. And this is a significant challenge for this area of work. In our experience, again, in trying to promote the methodological development to improve crime statistics, in our experience in trying to work with NSOs and with all the institutions across the criminal justice system to produce data on crime, and also in our efforts to improve data collection at the national, regional, and international level, we have learned a few lessons. As some of the speakers already mentioned, we managed to make some progress in developing international standards, such as the International Crime Classification for Statistical Purposes, the Manual on Corruption Surveys, other methodologies to measure, for example, gender-related killings, the measurement of corruption, all of these endorsed by the UN Statistical Commission. And we like to think that we have made significant progress on all these areas that are also associated to governance. But we believe that there is still a lot of work to do in the future. And for that, we're very supportive of the work that the Praia Group is doing, and especially we're very supportive of the future activities of what the Praia Group would become or could become in the future. And just to say that I think we need to consider, or the different committees and stakeholders should consider some important aspects, such as the need to find a niche of governance statistics that has not been covered elsewhere in order to avoid overlaps or duplicate efforts. There is a lot of work in some of the dimensions. I think the opportunity here is to build on those efforts and expand existing methodologies of standards, articulating different activities. That's one. The second one is to perhaps go beyond advocacy and try to develop networks or focal points at the national level that have the mandates and have the expertise to work on the different dimensions on their governance statistics. Another challenge that we found while working on crime and criminal justice statistics was the need for coordination at the national level. Again, governance statistics and all the thematic areas under this umbrella usually have the participation of different stakeholders, different institutions with different mandates, and there is a need to develop solid coordination frameworks at the national level if we really want to improve governance statistics. We would also like to mention that, of course, methodological development is the starting point. Capacity building is also extremely important, but there are some dimensions in which we already have a lot of progress in these two areas. So we really need to try to move beyond those areas of work and try to work on identifying non-traditional data sources and try to innovate and find ways to produce better data and also in a timely manner. So I think those would be some of the lessons that we would like to share from the UNODC perspective. And again, we remain very motivated to continue our work under the Praia Group and the Governance Statistics umbrella, because we are part of it, because of our mandates and because of the work that we have been promoting within the UN Statistical Commission. Finally, to say that for UNODC, having the support of INEGI, Mexico, and other countries that are really champion countries in these areas was key. And I think this is also very important for the Praia Group efforts to find those champion countries that can lead the work within the Statistical Commission, and that can also share their technical capacities and experience working on the different dimensions. And I think with that, I will end my remarks. And again, congratulations, and looking forward to the next steps ahead of us in this area of governance statistics.
Thank you very much, Salome, for these remarks and the support of UNODC to the Praia Group, which of course very important. We are probably going to run over time because this was meant to end at 11:30, but we have two more viewpoints on this topic, and we really want to hear from, first of all, Leonardo Tias of IBG Brazil, and then also from our colleague of South Africa. But first to Brazil, Leonardo, what are your views on priority areas and future of Praia Group? Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity. Well, as a member of NSO in Brazil, we have many challenges concerning governance statistics. Something that have been said before. Adrian from INEGI said that some challenges that they have, and Mexico is a benchmark for us in the region, for a country that have been able to advance. So concerning the Praia Group, I think that's been very interesting to take part and also to learn in the task teams. The handbook was a big step, but at some point it was a bit also disappointing to have, I think, more what I, as a member, a person from NSO, I'd like to see more case studies. Well, Liliana said about harmonized methodologies. They are important, but for me, it's more interesting to see tested methodologies, diverse case studies to see things that we could use and adapt, and because the diversity of the world. And for instance, about electoral systems, I'm a political scientist, so I know that the diversity is so huge. So maybe we should be able to have more these resources about. I also to try to work on with the countries to have more tested methodologies. Some things that are important are also to make more clear the link between the agencies, because sometimes the countries, the Praia Group should work for the international community or for the countries. Sometimes I don't know if since there are not so many resources and few time, maybe something that should be taken into account as priorities in that sense that I don't have answers, so more like questions that would be important for us to know more. What's the real link with SDGs? Sometimes we have many demands from UNDP, from other institutions. The governance at the local level sometimes is very difficult. Salome pointed out, because there are many other institutions, questionnaires that work that they came. We don't know who is answering. So maybe the Praia Group could help with the governance in this ecosystem. That would be better for us to navigate. And so in a few words, the idea is that's really been a great thing that had been done. I think awareness, the methodology, the discussions, knowing benchmarks, the context, what other colleagues. So I think that it should be really interesting to have a focus on improving these things, the statistics that have been the tools, in the sense that we need tools to work on this field, because it's very hard. For instance, in Brazil, we don't have a ministry of governance, as we are an institute that have many demands. So it's hard to put priority to governance, since we need many things to do. We need to do surveys for education studies, for health studies, and so on. So many challenges. So I thank you for the opportunity, and so this idea of helping us with these tools would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonardo. Thank you for some concrete proposals. I think that's well noted. And also, I think the point that how can the Praia Group, or how can the link with the Statistical Commission make sure that that there is at national level also more attention and more support to the development of governance statistics. The last speaker in this segment is Solly Molai from Statistics South Africa. Solly, if you could give your view on this.
All right, thank you so much, Ronald. I'm not going to be long. I think it's quite clear that there's quite a lot of work that's still outstanding. So my suggestion will be, we need to consolidate what the two tax team are doing so that we finalize the work that is done by the two tax team. And I think we need to explore the idea of an expert group. I think we need to find a way how best we can actually elevate the Praia Group to the expert group. I think that's the second point that I wanted to mention. I think my colleagues have already mentioned issues of finance and human resources. We need to find a way how we can collaborate with other international agencies to ensure that at least we improve from the financial perspective, because we really need financial muscles for us to actually complete some of the work. Then I think the fourth point, Ronald, is that we may also want to think about the guidelines on how to operationalize the CSA to produce the governance statistics, because I think CSA as a classification tool, it will be very interesting to come up with the guidelines in terms of how best we can actually operationalize it, especially for NSOs. Ronald, I don't want to waste time. I think those are the 4 points that I wanted to put across. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your very concise remarks, Solly. Much appreciated and well noted. Yes, I think this will bring it back to the Secretariat of the Praia Group to see if there could be a proposal formulated on the way forward, which might include maybe the proposal for an expert group. That's still up for discussion. Just to conclude, we see good support from two of the agencies which are very much involved in this work, namely the UNDP on the Global Policy Center and UNODC supporting the work of the Praia Group. And then from the comments of Leonardo and Solly, also from statistical officers, what they see as some of the areas where we can move forward. We don't, unfortunately, have time for a discussion. I think we'll invite everyone who has comments or questions to send this to the Secretariat because input is needed specifically on the way forward. I also want to thank Liliana for her presentation. I think that is an inspiring presentation. I hope it can be shared with everyone to get your thoughts on where to go next with the Praia Group. With that, I want to give back to Liliana for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Ronald. And as you see here, this is something that we need to continue to discuss, just way forward for the Praia Group. Here we had contributions from our partners that mention very important things. For example, Mr. Adrian that mentioned that it is very important to have the new statistical classification, but it's not a magical tool. So we do need to have people and budget and technical expertise. So the funding need is very important, so we continue our work. The focus on how we should intensify our advocacy work with the governance statistics that was mentioned by Aparna. And we all know the importance and the challenges of the governance statistics, because as it was mentioned here several times, it's not easy to translate this concept into numbers, into statistics. So we have to continue our work. We have to continue our joint efforts because governance statistics does not belong to an agency or a country. It's something for all of us. So we all need to get together and have a way forward for the Praia Group and for governance statistics. So we thank you all for your presentations, for your discussions, for your contributions, and we will continue as the Secretariat to gather all the feedbacks and to get a proposal that will be shared with all of you, because this is really important and we need to continue this good work we have been doing, and we need to think about, okay, how to continue to do this good work. And from Secretariat's point of view, the expert group, upgrading Praia Group to an expert group is an option that we want to focus at. So thank you again for all of you for your presence, and we pass our time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you around.
See you, Adrian.
See you, everybody.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.